I'll try and be succinct. So I am a lecturer. I am in Liverpool. The fact that I was in Sumy on Palm Sunday was really just terrible coincidence. My decisions to visit colleagues from Sumy State University's journalism department in return for them visiting my university as part of a twinning program. That was one decision. The other decision was some fool to be war criminal in Russia who decided to launch 2 missiles into the city center of Sumy on the day that I was there. The images behind me are some of what that looked like. I know there would be people in the audience here for whom the experience of being near an explosion of this kind is familiar. I am not such a person. It is an awful experience. I was in a hotel 2.5 blocks away, and it's something as best I could describe as like an enormous sack of bricks just getting dropped somewhere in your vicinity, and you feel this sort of wave in the building and the wave in the air. And I contacted a friend from the Red Cross and offered to help in any way I could. I'm good with the camera. I am good with my brain. The camera was the thing that was useful. And so on the Monday morning with the Red Cross, these are some of the images that I was taking, following the Red Cross through the destruction of what those 2 missiles had done. One went through the Congress Center. It was a library, co-working space in the center of Sumy. The second was an airburst intended to kill those who came to help the victims of the first blast. I'm not going to belabor the descriptions of these. You can see for yourselves the destruction behind me. It should be enough to just say what is quite plainly obvious, that weapons and tactics of this kind have absolutely no place in a city center, have absolutely no place in a city center on Palm Sunday. The officers of the people who had organized my trip from Sumy State University, the International Affairs Department, I have a photograph in another set of the entrance to their office that just goes into open space because the second airburst took out 3 stories of the office building that they work in. And so the woman who had so kindly helped to broker my safe passage to Sumy, her office, the office underneath that, the office underneath that one, all of these had disappeared in the blast. And it was really only just by the luck of God that because it was Palm Sunday, none of them were in their office, or all 15 who work in that department would have been added to the people who died in Sumy. Also present that day, very quickly after the attack, were the media, so BBC, Guardian, the rest, but also Suspilne in Sumy, and Cordon Media, a conflict reporting organization that was turning 2 years old around about that exact time. And the thing I want to close on is what the value of their work was to this. Like, what is the value of taking photographs or interviewing people or writing the story of something like this that happened in Sumy? In the broader story of what bombs and missiles and bullets can do. And I think, very briefly, there are 3 things. The one, and Victoria Amelina talks about this extensively in her book, there's an interview where she talks to the lawyer and author Philip Sands, that testimony can be the grounds for prosecution. It can be the thing that at some point can hold someone to account, whether that is in the formal structures of something like an international criminal court or other justice processes. There are many ways to pursue justice, but testimony is required to do this. This is the first and most obvious use of this testimony. The second, though, and one of the speakers at this forum alluded to this very much in the beginning, is that testimony doesn't just ask for something. It says, please will you help, please can we have justice. It takes something from the people who hear it. It takes your innocence away. The speaker early on in the forum was pointing about countries who would prefer to stay out of the war in Ukraine, who say, oh, it's not our business, I don't want to get involved. That's an innocent position as long as you don't know what's at stake. When someone shows you images of a place like Sumy, the testimony of the people who were there, when the world's media has images of what happened in places like Bucha, suddenly a decision to say, oh, I don't want to get involved, or I want to remain neutral, moves from a kind of innocent non-involvement to one of complicity. And that changes purely because somebody told you. Some testimony, some photo, some facts of the matter arrive at your doorstep, and suddenly from that point on, choosing not to be involved is to choose to kind of allow this process to continue. And the last, very quickly, I think, value of witnessing and kind of testimony beyond these. When I was a PhD student, I encountered deep in the sort of archives of universities, there's an article by a scholar called Alex Deval, where he talks about a town in Sudan called Kailek that was starved into non-existence by the Sudanese government. And the resonances to Ukrainian history are obvious. But that what happened to Kailek, that those people were starved to death, the record of that exists in only one document of a UN team that went to go and report on what had happened, who filed a report that got left in the UN archives. And it is only because that report was filed that anyone in the West would ever know that name or know that that town existed. And so what I want to close with, what I want to kindly suggest to the value of testimony, to the value of photographs, to the value of memory, is that there are things that are worse than injustice and atrocity. And it's injustice or atrocity where the knowledge of that injustice and atrocity disappears, right? To wipe people out, to kill them, and then wipe out the knowledge that they ever were killed. What happened? The circumstances, right? Had Victoria Amelina not found the diary under the cherry tree, right? That is a worse thing than often the injustice itself. And that's something that testimony, that photos, that the work of the reporters from Sumy, Sumy, from Court and Media, from journalism students from Sumy State University who were on site that day, that's a thing they do just by keeping a chronicle, just by keeping some sort of trace of what happened that hopefully others can follow up, others can be confronted with, right? It's a small thing, but it's not nothing. It's everything if you want to hold on to history, if you want to hold on to justice.